How to cope with losing a cat. In this story, you will find out how Marta helped Emilia overcome the pain of losing one of their 3 pet musketeers. On a foggy November evening, Aramis did not return from his evening walk. Aramis was one of the 3 foundling kittens of Marta and Emilia, 2 young friends who lived together in a village nestled in the green Tuscan hills. In this period, however, these green hills are covered with splendid colors in autumnal shades: yellow, orange and red. And in the morning from the top of these hills you see the fog covering everything. Losing a pet cat. In the morning Emilia worked as a waitress in a local tavern. Marta, on the other hand, started later. She worked as an accountant in a wine company near her home. Together they had 3 cats, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, all 3 of the poor foundlings. It was Marta who brought Athos and Porthos home, a few months later, after finding them soaking wet and crying on a dusty road, on her way home from work. One day Emilia was reading in silence on the sofa when she heard a loud meow coming from outside the house. He called Athos and Porthos, to make sure it wasn't them, and then decided to leave the house and have a look. In front of the house there was a red cat. He looked at her for a moment as she continued to meow, and then, she began to rub herself on her ankles, purring, as if they knew each other. It was as if Aramis had chosen her. As if they had chosen each other, because she too felt like one of the family. Emilia had never been so fond of an animal. She did not believe it possible that such a bond could be created. He woke her up every morning, perched on her belly, kneading with his paws as if he wanted to make cookies. And was the one who greeted her at the door when she came home from work. The one that stood between her and her laptop when she tried to send an email. And that was the one that sat on her watercolors if she tried to paint. She could read her eyes like no one else. Decipher her moods and distinguish her meows as if Aramis were her human baby. He, in turn, only had eyes for Emilia. And although he enjoyed playing with his brothers very much, anyone who had ever been to their home could testify that the cat and its owner were in love. Years passed, 5 to be exact, until one foggy November evening Aramis never returned from his evening stroll. How to deal with the loss of a pet cat. Emilia and Marta waited until 9 before going to look for him. They shouted his name all over the valley, so much so that a couple of neighbors heard the screams and came to help them. They went on until midnight. The torches illuminated the weeping faces of Marta and Emilia. Unfortunately, they couldn't locate him until the next evening. A day looking for him unsuccessfully until they found him in a bush behind a tree nearly 2 kilometers from home. Aramis lay on the ground, breathing weakly, and it was clear that something was wrong. They immediately took him to the vet, but it was too late. There was nothing he could do. Aramis had ingested poison, perhaps eating something intended for rodents. It was difficult to say, but one thing was certain: too many hours had passed and they could only help him keep going. They had to put down poor Aramis. Marta and Emilia were both devastated, but Emilia couldn't get out of bed for nearly a week. She burned all the vacation days he had at work in one fell swoop, and if his boss hadn't been truly understanding, she would have been in serious danger of losing her job. But she didn't seem to care. It seemed like everything that had happened was as far away as it wasn't happening to her. Athos and Porthos knew that someone important was missing, and for days they barely ate, meowing near the door, at Aramis's favorite pillow as if to ask, "But where is our brother?" It was a heartbreaking scene. For Emilia it felt like she had lost a friend, a brother and a life partner. For some time she remained on the verge of depression. Marta tried to help her as best she could, but we all know how difficult it is to help someone who is suffering, especially if we too suffer from that same pain. After several months in which Emilia seemed to be barely surviving, something happened. One evening, Marta returned home with a found puppy. "I present to you D'Artagnan." Emilia was stunned. For several seconds she could not say a word. But then she broke into a smile mixed with tears and said, "Hi Dart, nice to meet you. Come on, let us introduce you to the other 2 musketeers." Marta had no idea how Emilia would take it, and she wasn't even sure if bringing home a puppy was a good idea, but in this case it turned out to be a balm that heals the wounds of the whole family. Aramis would never be replaced, that was not the point, but life could go on, and the home of Emilia, Marta and the 3 musketeers could also become a home for animals looking for a family. After all, isn't that what everyone wants? A place to call home, where there is someone who loves us and whom we love. The story of Aramis, I admit, made me shed many tears. Indeed, it made me sob, but it also reminded me that if there is a meaning in life, It is to love and be loved, to do good when we can and for honor the good times we can live as much as possible. A big hug from Flower Pup.